The Game Schooler podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the joys of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll shine a spotlight on Mega Jackpot. Our game of the week is Castle Combo. In the School of Gaming, we discuss gaming rules. Get it right or keep it moving. And in our High Five, we continue with our alphabet series. And today is brought to you by the letter C.
Welcome to the Game Schooler podcast. I'm your host, Toko Checki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
What's happening, Doug? How are you?
I am pretty good. Seems like it's been a while since we've been in a normal booth recording situation.
We have not had a controlled environment in a while. That's accurate.
So I do want to take the opportunity to thank Andrew Bosley and the fellas over from Chronoverse Labs for taking the time to chat with us and put some cool episodes out there. So
yeah,
thank you to those
Tremblay
guys.
The week before that.
Yep.
So yeah, you bet.
All right. So as of some other follow-up, I did have surgery on my thumb. That went well.
Congratulations.
Thank you. However, that would be why there is a lack of new YouTube videos if anybody has been inquiring about that. So that will be on hold for a little bit until I get full use of both of my hands.
Yeah.
And until then, just remain patient with us.
And the rumors on the internet about you attempting to remove a sixth finger, that's not accurate, right?
No,
you were just chopping some firewood, doing what a good Midwestern person does on a Sunday morning, and woo-oo, part of the thumb went goodbye, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
Just I don't know if I saw it on Reddit or if I saw it on
yeah, I'm sure you have.
Board Game
been out there.
Podcasters Weekly. I don't know where I saw it.
I guess I should stick to gaming. Guys around computers maybe shouldn't do handy outdoorsy things.
Gaming and painting. Doug, you're a Renaissance man. Give yourself some credit.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, you are good. A little bit of everything. You're our show's producer, sound engineer, tech guy, mini painter. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Now, are
safety inspector?
Are you going to be able to? You failed that one. Are you going to be able to get back to painting minis? Kind of a half serious question there. Will that be something you'll be able to do?
I've got a follow up with the orthopedic surgeon today or tomorrow. Sorry, I'm trying to think of when this episode comes out in the future. But so we'll find out then how things are going. Okay. Physical therapist said that things look great.
Awesome.
I think it looks disastrous.
Oh, you've been doing your activities though. You've been doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
Good.
Not much, because the part that I actually need to work out is completely covered in bandages and immobilized. So until I get that part straightened out, then I can actually start doing things.
So when the physical therapist says it looks great, that's because of luck, not because of anything you're actively doing to make it look great.
Correct. It's healing well.
Okay.
The mass of black darkness at the end of my thumb apparently looks great to them. So thumbs up.
Yeah, there you go. Well done. All right. Anything awesome with gaming for you?
I've got a couple of things.
Good. Go get it.
The first one is, as I'm going through this process, it is a good reminder for anybody that the hobby doesn't go away. And you can always come back to it. So as of right now, it's like we've had a couple of game nights that have been canceled and we haven't been able to game. And it's one of those things where it's like, it will be there. And if you're going through a patch in your life, or, games are just not interesting to you, or you feel like you didn't have the passion that you once had, it's like, they're always there to come back to. And it's there when you need it. And so I don't know if that's helpful to anybody else. What are you smirking about? I'm trying
feel
to have
like
a
you're
moment here.
Auditioning for a pharmaceutical commercial that I'm not aware
son of a
of.
gun.
No, that's good, man. That's good. Sorry. It's been a while. It's been a while since we chatted.
Apparently.
You're right.
Jeez.
No, you're right. There's
cut
ebbs
to the
and
core.
flows and troughs, and it makes me think of an interview we had with Mike DeLisio like 2 years ago, just talking about the ebbs and flows and we've talked about it before. There's times where we'll both be diving into rule books and learning, and then, there's just other things to do in June. June is a time of family and travel and ending one year, beginning another, and regrouping, and
cookouts, pool parties, everything else, vacations and stuff. Stuff comes up, whether it's purposeful or unintentional. And it's kind of nice just knowing that that's there in the background to go back to when you need it, or that it's still available to you.
Yeah.
The other thing I did want to
wasn't
mention.
trying to ruin your moment, Doug.
No, you're fine.
Formally apologize before we move on.
The other thing was I've been in a couple of Barnes and Noble stores recently.
I love Barnes and Noble.
I've brought this up in the past before, but it still continues to strike me the times that I'm in there. And it really has become a great local game store.
Yeah.
So for places that don't, for individuals out there that don't have a friendly local game store, or a game store that's run by gremlins that you don't want to go into, if you've got a Barnes and Noble by you, they're very good as far as what they're carrying and the amount of games that they're stocking. And Target dabbled in that a little bit, and they do carry one or two titles that are like, oh yeah, those are hobby games. If you go to Barnes and Noble, you're getting the full gamut of hobby games, family games, party games, mystery games, anything that you can think of. They've got a really good selection there. And every time I go back into one, I'm like, this is like a really good local game store. So keep that on your radar if you're not, most people, even though they may be near a suburban area of some type, it may not have a local game store, but a lot of people are fairly close, within an hour or two of a Barnes and Noble. If you need a fix, it's a good place to go to.
Do they still have the section called Game Night? It's been about a year. I was going in and out of Barnes and Noble a lot for a few years while I was finishing up school, and my kiddos had
they have
activities right near one, so I was there like every week.
They have them categorized really well. Of game night and family games and party games and things like that. So pretty easy
awesome.
to find something that might work out for you.
I love it.
What's awesome for you, Michael?
Man, I just appreciate you, Doug. You're going from pharmaceutical commercial right into Barnes and Noble. Like we are going to get a sponsorship before this segment ends, man.
We're working on that Barnes and Noble one.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Borders gave us a call, but they're not.
And then they went out of business.
we were just so close.
Well,
and
we know it won't be Amazon. Based on the things that have come out of our mouth and the segments that we've had, we know Amazon will not be sponsoring the Game Schooler podcast anytime soon.
Probably not.
So maybe a Barnes and Noble, Doug.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's awesome for me, Douglas. Publishers. The hobby can be a brutal marketplace and community. And I'm so impressed with the communication gymnastics displayed on a consistent basis by publishers. And some of where I'm coming from is just, I have a few different crowdfunding projects that are in process of being fulfilled, and you can just see people want to know, well, I live in Wisconsin. Why haven't I gotten mine yet? Where's mine? And it's like, there's 10,000 units being delivered. Can't you just be patient? And just seeing the consistent and deliberate communication from, I've been really impressed with about a handful to a half dozen publishers over the last few months. And I realized, that's not something that I've ever really called out specifically. But without publishers, I mean, we love designers. We love artists. We have a bunch of them on the show. And we try to do the publisher spotlight as well, but they really are an engine for the entire industry and the hobby, and I know some are falling on tough times right now, but there are others that are just been really impressed with the communication and some of the creativity from a lot of the publishers that we talk about.
Yeah, and I think they're the ones that take the biggest brunt of abuse, actually, in the entire industry. It's a designer can come out with a game and people are like, I don't really care for it, but publishers take all of the heat of, my box was screwed up, this didn't happen, I wasn't happy with this, you guys screwed that up, that was a poor decision, why did you pick that artist, why did you do this? And it's it seems
but I
like
wanted
a lot
that
of that
artist, and that artist might actually use AI art, so I don't want to use that artist, but I wanted the wood meeples, but I also want the plastic needles in addition to my wood meeples, and it's just like, holy cow, how are you going to keep anyone happy? I thought we were just here to play some games.
Yeah, they're the ones that take the most abuse, that's for sure. Anything else before we move on to the Spotlight?
No, let's get after it.
All right, so this week's Spotlight is a game called Mega Jackpot from Randolph and Hachette Board Games. Came out in 2024. The designer is Erwin Morin and Jan Morin, and the artist is Victor Dulon. 2 to 4 players, 10 to 20 minutes. This is a party game. Feel the electric buzz of a Las Vegas casino right at your table. In Mega Jackpot, you're a high-rolling gambler, flipping cards to chase matching symbols and daring to push your luck for the ultimate super mega jackpot. Will you cash out with a fortune or risk it all for glory? On your turn, choose to flip 1 card from a real deck to a discard pile, or 2 cards to 2 separate piles, aiming to align 3 identical symbols for a jackpot. Hit a jackpot, cash out to place those cards on your board for points, or gamble them away in a money tray for a shot at the mega jackpot by flipping a tile. If you draw a genie, you claim the tray's cards, but a monkey leaves those cards in the tray, and a third monkey wipes out the tray entirely. Feeling bold? If you win with 3 sevens and go for a mega jackpot and flip the genie tile, you win and the game ends instantly. Want another spin? Pay for a card from your winnings, but each must be higher valued than the last, forcing tough choices. And when the real deck runs out, finish the turn, and then you'll tally points from the cards on your board. The player with the most points win unless someone snags the super mega jackpot for instant victory. Can you spin your way to casino stardom, or will your luck fizzle out like a busted slot machine? So, Mega Jackpot is a very simple game, and it is, this is what I want to say about it. I enjoyed my experience with this game, but it is what it is. And
it's just dumb fun.
Expectations of this matter going into the game.
Yeah.
So if you think that you're going to be making real crafty choices and manipulating the board to your advantage, that is not this game.
You are not going to feel clever. You are going to feel lucky.
Yes, it is an entirely luck-based game for the most part. The back of the cards do show the 2 possible options of what's on the front of the card before you flip them, but there are no guarantees. And you will feel the sensation of crashing and burning and feeling super lucky and getting a jackpot. So I that's the one thing I want to clarify before you go in, or before we go into this anymore, is that the expectations that you approach this game with really matter. This is a party game, and should be approached as such. So what did you like about this one, Michael?
Yeah, I already said it, Doug. It's dumb fun. It just really is. There's not, it's a game. It's a pure, simple 10, 12, 15-minute game where you're going to have a good time throwing some cards around and really going for it. Similar to other, if it's just a dice chucker and you're just going to throw some dice and try to pull off some combos, it has that same type of fun factor. And I think if you know that going in, that's the reason why we're putting a spotlight on it, right?
Yeah.
If you are a gamer and you look this up on Board Game Geek, you will see it currently today has a rating of 5.5. Now, if you look at the comments on it, though, you're going to see some really positive comments. You're going to see some people that say this game has no right. This is from Pumpkin 312 in Tennessee, the United States. So don't have permission to call them out yet, but I'll say, like, this comment is good, okay? This game has no right being as crazy fun as it is. Amazing time gambling. Mega Jackpot is the most thematic card game I can think of. You'll be pushing your luck to hit big. Makes me want to go to the casino, pull some slots. 15 minutes of pure joy, a perfect filler. And I think that comment, that's pretty much my take on it as well. Now, I haven't been to a casino. I'm afraid what I would do in a casino, but I have played Mega Jackpot. So... I don't know how this game has a 5.5 and Flip 7 has a 7.2. That's one, and the standard deviation on Mega Jackpot is a 1.91 in the rankings. The standard deviation on Flip 7 is a 1.52, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a whole lot. So it's like people are really split on this game is what I'm saying, and I think Doug and I both fit in the camp of, this is a fun little card game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one that I'm not going to run out and tell everybody in the world about, and it's not one that I'm like, this is a disaster. This was so dumb. Like, you know what you're getting into. Where it's like, I may be in last place and nothing will go my way, and it will be fun. And people trying to push their luck. People will try and push their luck for that Mega Jackpot, and it can be exciting when they win, even if you're losing as a result of it. I think our buddy Dan kind of summed it up well, which is when he was done, he's like, this is a game that I want to introduce to my mom because I think she will really enjoy it as a gaming adjacent. Let's put it that way, right? Yeah. It's a gamer that likes playing simple, non-rules heavy games.
And you get a little bit of that feeling of just pulling down a slot machine. It might work out. It might not. I mean, I see what could be on the back of the cards. Oh, it's not. You're just flipping and going. And
it's interesting when I think the kind of the knock on this game and other games as well would be the idea that it's like, well, it's not so much of a game, but an activity. And it's like, okay, but all games are an activity. Like, the whole point that we're getting together to sit down is because it's an activity. And so that kind of rubs me the wrong way when people say that, or those show up in those review comments on Board Game Geek of like, it's very dismissive. And it's like, if you play the game and it takes 10 minutes and you have fun, not everything needs to be a mental exercise of establishing your mental superiority and dominance over other people. Like,
so I'll add in as well a few other ifs and caveats to support your argument, so I don't think you'll have a problem here. If the game costs $15, if the game can be taken out of the box and put back in by people who know how to play it in 10 minutes and people who are going to learn to play it for the first time in 15 to 20 minutes max, this is an indoor recess game. This is a middle school library game. This is a game that you can use to introduce to other folks. Now, are there a ton of lessons and skills? No, it's gambling, but you're bringing people together and you're having a good time. You're getting people away from the screens and you're playing a little card game. So that's what I would say about Mega Jackpot. I'm really glad we got a chance to look at it and review it and have some fun with a few different groups. My initial play, I believe I was just really ecstatic on it because I won. Then the next play, I got crushed and I didn't like the game so much. And I think, but what I'm saying, I think there's some good lessons in that. Yeah. Because gambling, Doug, is a problem. I mean, I'm not here to tell people it can be, absolutely. So
do we have to put that hotline number up on this?
Boy, I tell you, no, go listen to Michael Lewis podcast if you want to hear about that. Not us. That's not why people tune in here. But I've had fun playing the game, man. I really have.
Yeah. All right, so that's our spotlight this week. Mega Jackpot from Randolph and Hachette Board Games. Before we move on to the game of the week, I want to remind everybody to watch, subscribe, and like the YouTube channel. We appreciate that. Spread the word about the podcast and leave a review on the platform of your choice. That helps us out immensely. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us, email@gameschooler.com. Again, that's email@gameschooler.com. Now let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is a good one, folks. It's Castle Combo, designed by Gregory Girard and Matthew Rousseau, art by Stephanie Escapa, published by Pandasaurus Games here in North America. A 2024 release, playtime of 10 to 25 minutes, 2 to 5 players, ages 10 plus. And this is Gregory Girard's second game of the week on the Game Schooler podcast. Doug, give us an overview of Castle Combo.
Hear ye, you are summoned to His Majesty's bustling kingdom. In Castle Combo, you're a shrewd noble drafting quirky characters from village and castles to build a dazzling 3x3 tableau and claim the most victory points. Each player starts with 15 coins, 2 keys, and a dream of glory. Over 9 rounds, you'll draft cards from 2 markets, the Noble Heavy Castle or the Peasant-Packed Village, depending on the location of the wooden messenger pawn. On your turn, spend 1 key to move the messenger to the other market, or refresh its row for fresh faces. Then spend coins to recruit a character, placing it in your 3x3 grid. Each card after the first must touch another orthogonally. Trigger its immediate ability, like gaining coins for nearby nobles or keys for military shields. Can't afford a card? Take 1 face down for 6 coins and 2 keys, but it scores nothing. Every character has unique endgame scoring, like points for specific shields, such as nobility, faith, or peasantry, or card placement, demanding clever combos. Balance gold and keys to snag beneficial cards while denying rivals their perfect picks. The game ends after 9 rounds when everyone's tableau is complete. Score points for each card's condition, and leftover keys score 1 point each, and any coins stored in purse cards. The player with the most points reigns supreme. Can you thread the needle between peasants and princes, or will you spend your days trying to avoid the plague? So that is our game this week, a Castle Combo. I'm going to go on a weird tangent here because I just thought about it. Which is one of the highlights of this game, and maybe this should be in the production thing, but I don't want to forget about it. This game has an amazing score sheet, as weird as that seems to say, but each card is depicted on the score sheet. And so you score each card individually and then add them all up. Where a lot of games have scoring structures in a game like this, where there's a bunch of combos and things triggering off each other, it's how many points did you get from this? How many points did you get from that? And you're like, all right, I got 5 cards here. There's this. Yep. How many of this? This one, it's like, Michael, what'd you score on your upper left-hand card? That point, that one is worth 8 points. So it's super easy to score at the end of the game, which I think is what is one of the things that makes this so fun and enjoyable. Because if that was not there, this game would fly off the rails at the end as far as keeping track of score in a way that some other games that we've played have done. Where it's like you
a
play
forced shuffle.
Yeah, you play the game and then you're like, all right, let's score this. And, it's...
How many nobles? How many this? How many that?
I could really use
what do you have in your upper left?
To keep track of stuff. So wanted to kind of highlight that because it is one of the best parts of why I think this game works so well, among other things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's another game that this same company, so Pandasaurus localized this game here in North America, but Catch Up Games is the initial publisher, I do believe. And another game that they have in their catalog is Far Away. And it's a similar scoring at the end, In Far Away, you have 8 cards, and you're just scoring them one at a time. And I feel like that similarity in Castle Combo, it makes it easier to teach. It makes it easier to kind of understand for everybody at the table. But it's also really enjoyable, and I think it allows it to run the game back. Because, you know, when this says that it's 10 to 25 minutes, if you and I were going to play, we could easily get 2 games in a half hour. And that's what we would do. If we had a third person there, we could easily get 2 games in a little over a half an hour. So, no, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up on the front end. What do you like about it, Doug?
I think the thing that I really enjoy about it is that it has fast gameplay because it has the right number of choices to keep you engaged without slowing the game down. So the wooden messenger pawn determines which card or which row you can buy from. There are only 3 cards in each row. So and yes, I can spend keys to flush the market or move to the other row, like that's an extra currency. But if I don't have keys, or I want to save my keys because they are worth points at the end of the game, I'm just picking up through 3 cards of which one I want to buy. And the market isn't changing over that quickly that when it comes to my turn, it's like I can quickly look over the 6 cards on the player before me's turn and say, okay, one of these might be gone. Okay, if he doesn't take this one, these ones are available. If he does take that one, I might get jumped down to the peasant market, and this is the one that I'd like to take. So the choices are engaging and interesting, and I enjoy making those decisions. But the game keeps moving, and it does not really slow down, even though there are cards that you really want or cards that are going to give you huge bonuses. Or you're thinking, oh, I really want to get that. It's got 3 shields that I need, or 2 shields. And then where can I put it? And then trying to work out, okay, this will be good if I get more in this row. And then, oh, but this one doesn't score if I put it in that row. So I need to put it up here, and you're, just that idea of like, I thought I was going to do this, but now I'm not. And what you end up with at the beginning of the game from that first card that you drafted of how you thought your board might play out is completely different. And I love that journey of trying to, it's basically like getting a hodgepodge and like, how can I make all this junk work together?
I'm laughing because the turns are so quick. There's such a great flow. And yet I've had that experience where I find myself just staring at the 6 possible choices and trying to do math, and then getting to a point where it's actually startling when there is some of that downtime, because then the other people at the table, I'm guessing they're thinking, what is he doing over there? Just pick a card. And so like the stop is all of 30 seconds, right? Because the game does move so quickly. It's very simple to understand. You can get great combos that you can see that emerge when a new card flips into the market. It's a game where you think you're getting blown out, and then that perfect choice just appears, and all of a sudden the game tightens up. I'll say my last thought right now, but it's super fun to play and score. And you mentioned that at the beginning. This game is a ton of fun to just sit around the table, and you got how many? You got what? And I think that's something that designers have hit on recently, especially in these 15 to 20 minute card games. That the scoring is a big part of the game. It's a big part of the fun.
Yeah. You see, okay, I got 8 points there. You got 7 points on that card. Oh, my middle card got 9, and you got 6. And
then all of a sudden, 18. What? How'd you get 18 points on that one card? No way. Oh, good job.
I think the other thing that's interesting about this is you're constantly balancing endgame points with in-game flexibility. And what I mean by that is you may have a card that will give you a bunch of points if you take it. However, getting coins and keys allow you to be flexible throughout the rest of the game. And so those are a big thing of trying to balance that so you don't have to take a card with no scoring on the back.
Yeah.
That you always have money to be able to buy and afford a card, or a key to be able to jump back up to the noble side or the peasant side as needed. Having those are really important. And sometimes it becomes that choice of, this card is really good for me, but it will completely clear me out and be a problem going forward. So it's like, I better take this one that gives me a little bit more flexibility and not as many points, or saying, I really need those points and I'm going to make that gamble.
So should we go right into our skills and then do things to be aware of? Because you're taking me right down the skill path. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, yep.
That resource management we define as a game that boosts a player's capacity to efficiently and effectively oversee available assets. It's to me, it's the number one skill in here, and you just touched on all the reasons why. It's not the combos. The combos, Castle Combo, it's the name of it. Yeah, you think that's what's going to happen, but it's really, how am I managing the finite spaces that I have? I have a 3x3 grid, and then how am I also managing the keys? Because keys are points at the end of the game. And so there are some cards that almost work like little key generators that will generate keys for you based on other combos. And so being able to manage the resource of the spaces, the resource of the combos on the actual cards, and then also what you are accumulating throughout the game is a fun little puzzle. And I don't think it's one that takes repeated plays to see, like we often talk about. It's one that emerges right away. I mean, the first couple turns of the game, it's like, oh, this is what I need to be aware of, and this is how I'm going to manage. So
yeah, I think the big learning pivot point is when you get to that point where you have to take a card and put it face down for the first time.
Oh,
the second that happens, then you realize like you need to have that happen to you once before you're like, all right, I guess money is a little bit more important than I thought. I need to work on that.
Yeah,
but
explain that to our listeners. If you're unable to buy a card from the marketplace, you must
take one and you flip it to its backside. It gives you 6 coins and 2 keys, but it won't score any points at the end of the game. So it's a one-time income generator, and it's
hopefully one time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the first time it happens and you get to the end game scoring and you have to say 0 for that. Michael, what'd you get in your middle space? 0?
Oh, no. Don't put me 0 on the middle space. I'm not that guy. No,
maybe.
Right. That was never me. Okay.
Okay. Lower left, Michael, and upper right, Michael. 0, 0.
I was going for it that game. I was trying new strategies. All right. To Doug's point, though, it's an awful feeling. It's a memorable feeling. One that I went several games being afraid of that. Always keeping a little prudent reserve. Always having a little budget so I could buy a card. And then the game opened up where I was like, I've got an incredible combo here. I'm not going to worry. Meh. And then I took a 0 and I took another 0, and it was awful reporting that out at the end. Yeah. So, yes, thanks for reminding me of that, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help you learn from your mistakes.
What happened
grow,
first time
grow
you
as a
played the
gamer. The other one I have, which I talked about as a thing that I liked, which is Tactical Thinking, a game that challenges players to make decisions based on currently available and frequently changing information. It's interesting how the first card that you pick and add to your tableau there, your 3x3 grid, you kind of use that as a starting foundation of here's a little bit of a direction. And then what happens 3 cards later when you can't get any of the cards to help match that combo? You need to pivot and you need to go into a different direction and start trying to make other combos. So you cannot be married to a one strategy through the entire game. You have to be able to adjust and make combos all over your board, not just based on your the only kind of overarching strategy that you can have is the idea of like, I'm going to try and keep a prudent reserve. Other than that, all bets are off. You've got to pivot and change as needed.
You said tactical, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And even to the point where this is going to be my middle card. And from that, I'm going to spawn 3 spaces up, 3 spaces below, a card on the left and the right. And then all of a sudden, 2 turns later, that's actually not going to be my middle card. I'm going to start a new middle card because it's a better combo. Yeah. And those type of decisions, I'm not saying that out loud to the rest of the people at the table, but I know it in my head and it makes me feel a little bit brave, sometimes a little bit clever. That's the part of the tactical thinking that I had as well. I just had one more skill that I brought to the table. And it's actually a core skill. We believe that the core skills are in all the games that we talk about, but that's comprehension, a game that requires players to perceive and understand concepts, ideas, and functions. And this is really the only area where I get the buyer beware. If you don't have the ability to read the text on the cards independently, then you don't have the ability to comprehend and play the game independently. That's not saying that kids younger than 10 cannot play this game. It's just saying that if you're playing with, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kiddos, they might require an adult helper to play alongside with them and to really play it, because you need to be able to comprehend the text on the cards. And I know that sounds so obvious, but with the cutesy art, this game's going to win a ton of awards, you guys. This is a game that is generally loved. I'm not going to say we're late to the party in covering it. We're covering it when we choose to cover it. But that comprehension is just a skill that I wanted to kind of tuck in there and sneak in there, because it's really what the game is also built around. You have to be able to know what the cards say so that you can fit it together. There's only a handful of icons. Those are real easy to sort out, but knowing how those abilities trigger off, not a ton of keywords, just a few, but if you can manage a few of them, you're going to have a great time playing it.
Yeah, the last skill I have is decision making, and the reason I have that in here, it's another one of those core skills. It's in a lot of games, but I feel like this one, you're rewarded, and it's a very enjoyable part of this game, whether it's the decision of which card you're going to buy or the decision of where you're going to place it, when you're going to spend your keys or not spend your keys. There's a lot of rapid fire decisions in this game that have long-reaching consequences depending on how determining how you'll score at the end of the game.
Long-reaching by 15 minutes, not an hour and a half, which is also really nice. Not to interrupt you, but
a lot of decisions in a short amount of time, but all of those decisions are rewarding. They're not throwaway decisions. You only have 9 cards, and so I think that's a really cool skill that you have in this game, is that agency to change direction, make choices, make mistakes, put things down, and sometimes have to live with it. And sometimes, like you said, being able to I guess this isn't going to be my middle card based on how I place my next card. Things like that. I think the decisions in this game are really rewarding. The art in this game, moving on to the production, I think the art is really distinct and enjoyable. Like, I love the style of it. It's kind of a line art. It's a cartoony line art that works really well for the style of the game of nobles and peasants, and I just really enjoyed it. And then the other part of the production is the score sheet and the way that works so seamlessly. I think they did a really good job. It's a great box size, very portable.
Nice
great
little cardboard components too. I mean, the keys are cool, and you got the
keys and coins.
Keys are cool, where they have the one key, but then they also have a set of 3 that are connected. And there's a little sense of, for me at least, there's a little sense of, I don't want to break up this 3 key. I want to keep this 3 key together. How can I generate one more key? So I think they did a really nice job with production.
All right. Anything to be aware of on this one, Michael?
No, I shared it. You just need to be able to read independently in order to play it.
Yeah.
And it says 10, publisher says 10 plus. I think that's spot on. The other thing to be aware of, and I think this is in a great way, and you talked about in production, there's a lot of game in the box. And I think there's a lot of enjoyment in the box. And I didn't look at the MSRP coming in. But for me, this falls in that NAR, far away. That when Pandasaurus gets it right on these smaller card games, they have really gotten it right lately, and that's where not to be aware, but this could be the main game. This could be what you do on your game night. This is a game that I think works well in a lot of different settings.
All right, and your final thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, most of the time I say try it if you get the chance. If you're listening to the Game Schooler podcast, just go pick a copy of it up. Put it in your classroom, put it in the teacher's lounge, put it in your house. It will likely work well for you and your family.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect combination for me of engagement and approachability, which sometimes those are hard to get at the same time. Sometimes games are approachable, but they're very quick and not very fulfilling. And sometimes games are really engaging, but they're not very approachable to people. And
They've got a huge playmat and a bunch of minis.
And this one kind of does it really well. It fits that sweet spot. So that is our game of the week this week, Castle Combo from Pandasaurus Games.
The School of Gaming. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, etiquette, and helpful ideas in the world of gaming. This week, we discuss rules. Get it right or keep it moving. Gaming rules, Doug. What do you do about it? Do you take your time and fumble through the rule book and maybe, have litigate over the rule book, or do you just keep it moving?
That's a great question. I think we're of somewhat similar, but also different minds in the way that we approach this. I think as a general policy, I'm more of a let's keep the game moving. And if there was basically let everybody, if a rule was misinterpreted or done wrong, we will allow that to be done for the remainder of the current round. So nobody is limited by that. Everybody's had an opportunity to take advantage of that rule. We will edit undo sometimes if it's feasible. But for the most part, it's like, let's correct it the best way we can and move forward with the game. I cannot, only on a handful of occasions, like if you screw up something, the irony is a lot of times the games that you screw up with a major rule seems like they're always the simple games that you just say, all right, we'll just restart it. Like go back to the beginning. And I don't know if that's just because it's like, oh, it's a simple game and you read the rules fast and there's one sentence that you're like, oh, we can't do that. All right, let's reset it. But for the most part, it's pretty rare that I'm in a game where it's just like, we screwed this up so bad that we need to start over again. It's usually games that have little weird exception rules. They're like, oh, I forgot to do this, or somebody says, oh, can I do this? And like, oh, we can do that? Oh, yeah, you can. And then somebody says, oh, I would have done that my last turn. And then you're like, all right, well, nobody can do it now. And then going forward after this round, take that action. So it's kind of like fixing it on the fly is, I guess, what my usual approach is. Rarely is there ever a thing where it's like, we need to reset this and get it done. I mean, maybe if we're doing some sort of convention competition, but that just seems kind of extreme. How about you?
Yeah, I think it is entirely group dependent. Entirely group dependent. And I think the quicker a group can get to an agreement about, are we going to go consult the book or are we just going to keep this game moving, the better off the entire party is. Whether I'm playing board games with my family, whether I'm playing with you in our game group, whether I'm playing at a convention or playing with extended family, knowing what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, I think is critical. So where it's not communicated, that to me is where the issues come up. So what are the agreements that people have at the Magic Circle when they come together? Are we going to go to the rule book and consult it and make sure that we get it right, or are we going to keep it moving? And I think how you described it, part of how you and we have arrived at how we go through that is because we're playing so many games.
Yeah.
Are we really going to take 20 minutes here and get this one little exception rule figured out and mapped out? And we're also in the era of Board Game Geek. So while I'm in the rule book, another person at the table can be in the rules forum. And that's where Board Game Geek is typically great and say, look, the designer said this. You know, whether it's a Reddit, a Discord channel, or the Board Game Geek rules forum, there's other places out there. And then that's where the last thing I'll say is a house rule. You know, we are in a worldwide hobby where rules are not always clearly interpreted by two people the same way. So just coming to, okay, how are we going to play it? Great. Now let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I want to clarify. I'm always for checking the rule book to find out what's accurate. I would never.
Oh yeah.
It's like
you didn't misrepresent that. No.
Well, I didn't want to make it seem like we're just like the idea of keeping it moving is not like, oh, we just make up a rule or decide what it's going to be. We will always consult what the rule is and then make a decision on how that works within the game confines to keep the game moving. Is there a way that we can keep playing this game without restarting it? And I think part of that comes from if you are playing with, we're competitive. It's not like we don't play competitive games and we don't want to win, but it's not uber competitive that people are going to get upset because and litigate it after the game. Well, I would have won if this, and I'm so upset that I didn't. So it's certainly verify, check, and then in the rare instances where we have had some times where it's like the rule isn't clear. There's interpretation among the 4 people that are at the table of how it should be resolved, and there's no clear indication on Board Game Geek. You just kind of have to move along, and sometimes, afterwards, the next day, people kind of do some research. Sometimes you'll find an answer and sometimes you don't. And when you don't, ultimately it kind of comes down to, it's like, that's a pretty big flaw that we could, it really puts a damper on the game, and you try not to have that slow the game down to a halt and just be like, an immovable object that you just is in the way, an elephant for the rest of the game. But we try and do our best to alleviate that, right?
Absolutely. And for me, my answer to this segment is it is entirely setting dependent, Doug.
Yeah.
If I am in your basement playing at your house, I am going to approach this very differently than if I'm playing against my 9-year-old at my house, or if I'm playing at a convention, or if I'm playing in a middle school with other people's kiddos. There's just 4 very different approaches. This is something that over time I've had to let go of the rule book in some ways and just say, like, no, it is very similar to what our guest said last week. Ken Franklin, board game designer, said, and this is his tagline on Board Game Geek, I play for grins, not wins. It's like, do I want to be right, or at least perceive that I'm right? Or do I want to continue to have friends who want to play board games with me? Because holding on to that getting it right can really suck the fun out of an entire evening for people.
Yeah.
And so that's where I, over time, have really fallen into the keep it moving. And at the same time, and this is very infrequently, but if I'm learning the game if I'm in the community gaming, whether I'm at the friendly local game store or I've, paid $3 or $4 to have a gaming experience at a convention, I will, have an overview and a gist and an outline of the rule book heading into that. So I'll know what's happening. And I will, 2, ask clarifying questions on the front end. And if I do those 2 things, if I have an understanding of the game that I have agreed to play and sometimes paid a few dollars to play, and if I've looked at the rule book ahead of time on Board Game Geek, then I'm in such a better spot. Or even done a tutorial on Board Game Arena, a learn to play, and kind of watched a YouTube video, then I don't need to get it right. I can keep it moving. So I guess what I'm saying is that it's my job as the gamer to keep it moving. I don't want to be that guy going to the rule book and slowing everything down.
Well, but I think those are 2 different issues in some ways. They're 2 different. It's like, I get the idea that the reaction or the way that a group responds may be different, right? And it's like, I get like, take the kids part out of it, because that's a whole other thing of where it's like, yeah, we're trying to make this fun and we're going to keep the game running smoothly, right? You don't want to have a whole bunch of herky-jerky stops of checking the rules and, hold on, honey, I know you're 8, but hold on to that attention span while like we can cross that off the list, right? That's just the idea of like,
Yeah.
let's make it fun for the kids. But anytime you're in the community or game night at my house or anything like that, it's like, I would assume that the approach would always be the same. It's like, let's get it right, but let's keep it moving. And maybe I'm having a
not
trouble
necessarily, because
understanding.
some people are very offended when you go grab the rule book. That's the part of it that I'm saying. At your house, I know I can always do that. If I have a question, oftentimes if I go to the rule book, you'll say, "Hey, what's your question?" You'll stop your thinking in your turn and offer to help. It's not always that way, especially gaming with strangers. You know what I mean?
There's a difference, but that's just a tack thing. It's like, it's one thing to ask a question to the person that taught the game, as opposed to like, hey, can I see the rule book? Because I think that you may have misinterpreted something wrong. Like, those two things can be accomplished by asking a clarifying question as an approach. But if I'm playing in a group of people for the first time and I have a question for it, or I read the rules in advance, whether I needed to or not, and I'm like, is it possible to do this? Then does that work better than, like, is it just the approach of the way that you handle it? I mean, I know that there are some people that are, and I'm not talking about, maybe it's the definition of keep it moving. Like, what does keep it moving mean to you?
To me?
In our description of this topic, what is the idea of keep it moving? Get the rules right or keep it moving.
Yeah, so my thought with that, and I'm thinking about a very clear time where I was traveling for work and I was at a meetup, and I'm reading the rule book, and there are 3 other complete strangers that I will never see again that are waiting on me and waiting on my turn while I'm trying to figure out how this part of the game actually plays that I've never played before. And it was a good teach, but I'm trying to figure out this hobby level game and how it works. Well, I'm just going to fold up the rule book, take a turn there, and now I'll open up the rule book. I'm going to keep it moving so that everybody can play. I don't want to take another 3 to 5 minutes out of everyone's life here. I've asked a clarifying question. I'm still not understanding. I need to read this in the rules to figure it out. That's kind of part of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, interesting. It's hard for, I don't want this to come off as elitist or anything, but it's like, I've not been in that situation.
You're just so smart, Doug.
Exactly.
You can't help it.
I pick everything up immediately. Outside of that one game, what was it? Foxy was that one that I could not grasp, much to the chagrin of the person teaching it to me. But I don't know what the solution is there.
I just think the solution is to keep it moving is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, have the agreement and know it. If I guess I'll answer my own question. If I'm gaming in public, if I'm playing board games in public with people that are strangers, I want them to want to be able to play games with me again.
Yeah.
If I sit down at that table a year from now because I'm traveling for work and I go back to the same meetup, I don't want people to be like, oh, this guy's back. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I am in the camp of keep it moving.
Yeah.
But if I'm learning a game, I'm playing a game. I personally, I like when things tie out and they're right. You know? So
yeah. What does that come down to? The idea of like, is keep it moving, maybe for you specifically, the idea of like letting go of, maybe I'm not going to be playing exactly right or doing optimal moves and being okay with that, as opposed to like rules clarify, like I like fully understanding the mechanisms, or it's like, I'm going to take this action. It may not be optimal, but it keeps the game moving, and just like I'm experiencing the game, as opposed to, because like your personality is, I want to understand every aspect of the game, and I want to compete and be doing the best that I can. Like,
yep.
I don't care if I win, but I want to be doing the best that I can. And maybe being hard for you to just be like, yeah, I'm going to make moves and maybe they're not the best moves, and keep it going on that regard. Is that more in line, or is that?
I think
making
everything
sense?
you're saying is in line. I'm not picking up on any misalignment here. Yeah, I do think it's an interesting topic because we play games and have played a lot of games for a lot of hours and a lot of days of our life together. And so we have an established process down, right?
Yeah.
And with our game group and when others, join and step in and step out. But it's different group to group, you know what I mean? And so that's all.
But I feel like the ultimate goal, regardless of what the responses are in the different groups, the ultimate goal should kind of be the same, right? How can we move on in the best possible way to make everybody happy? And
absolutely. But if I don't have those shared experiences built up over time, right? If I haven't played hundreds of hours of games with people before, and I'm just sitting down at the table for the first time, I think getting kind of that, and that's where I started out the segment, getting to that shared understanding as quickly as possible about how is this game going to actually go? What are our agreements here?
Yeah.
Because other folks don't handle interruptions well. They just don't. If they're going to teach the game, they're going to expect that you understood the game, and then they're going to play their game. And so I've had that experience as well, where you kind of need to go to the rule book by default. Now that's hard to imagine the way that you and I play games, right? If you're teaching a game,
I can imagine it.
If you're playing a game, if you're teaching a game, you will get interrupted 10 to 15 times by two other people, throughout the game. So that's all.
I get that the groups are different, and I understand 100% like the idea of as quick as you can get to that magic circle and understanding as possible. From an individual aspect, I feel like a person's approach should always be the same. Now, whether that gets rebuffed, the general goal should be, in my opinion, to try and solve a rules dispute as equitably as possible, and then keep moving on and forward with the game. Now, if that gets rebuffed by the people there, that's a group issue. But from a personal standpoint, I always go in with that, where some people's mentality would be, no, we're restarting the game.
Oh,
because
yeah. No,
it needs to be
I
even
haven't run into that. I guess
even footing, or
yeah,
and maybe it's two different issues. It's the idea of clarifying rules and of players and teachers. How do you handle that situation? And sometimes teachers don't handle that well. Of like, what do you mean my teach wasn't good enough? I explained it perfectly. And then other points of players like, I just didn't get it, and I'm asking too many questions. Should I just stop asking questions and go with the flow? So it's like there's a lot of, I guess my ending situation is similar to what you're talking about, which is like there's so many variables depending on where you are in that experience.
Yeah.
Teacher, player, a group you're familiar with, a group you're not familiar with, depending on the general vibe of everybody else there. It's like if you're the lone new guy and everybody else is playing, it's like, well, you
better adjust to the group.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how people in the Discord handle these issues when they come up, and where they're at in different perspectives, because I feel like there's a whole bunch of other avenues that you and I aren't even thinking about or touching on because we haven't even been exposed to them.
Yeah.
Delightful stories and horror stories. So
yeah, in 30 more seconds, I'll just kind of bookend if that's okay. And I think that, so I had an experience where traveling for work in close proximity within like 4 months of each other, where I was in Boston at a meetup, 3 different strangers, and we played Wormspan, and we played it. It took 2.5, 3 hours because on every turn, the 4 of us were actively talking about what is the best strategic move. And so it was awesome. I'm learning it. I'm like fully engrossed in the game. A few months later, I'm in Houston and playing board games in the basement of a church. And I was not going to go to the rule book. This was more like, it was just fun. and it was a frolicking adventure. And if I had a rules question, it wasn't about strategic advantage. It better be about how does this actually work for this game. I played Castles of Burgundy and Cryptid, and it was my first time playing Cryptid. And so I wasn't asking to try to get an advantage. I was asking to really make sure I didn't ruin the deduction experience for everybody. So it was just juxtaposing those two. One was a very in-depth know the rule of and the differances from wingspan to wormspan, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to help each other to try to see who can get the best score. And the other was just more of like, we're socializing, playing games. So that's where I think the approach matters.
Yeah. Know the group. All right, let's move on to the high five. Every week, Michael and I highlight a list of games we want to play, enjoy, or spread the word about, and everybody loves lists. And this week, we're taking a look at our favorite games that begin with the letter C. Michael, you've got 500 on your list, I believe?
I have a lot, Doug. So I have 7, and I actually have some feelings for number 6 and 7. The games are so good, it's like, I'm sorry I couldn't get you on my list.
Oh, I feel that totally.
I'm serious, it was a tough cut.
I agree.
Okay.
I think that's the one thing that, like, it's easy to list off a list of 10 to 15 great games for whatever category it is. The hardest part, and this is where this going through these letters has been the hardest part is putting them in order.
Yeah.
Right? Because so many of games in general is like being a waiter. Right? What's the best meal for the right time? What am I in the mood for now? And so it seems like depending on what I'm in the mood for or what group is there, this list could be completely different. And the hardest part is putting it in an order that's like, well, this is definitively number 2. It's like, they're not. It's like I'm trying to balance games I like, games I love, games that I think work well, things that I may get to the table more frequently. There's so many different variables going into it that makes it really hard. And I feel like all of the games on my list and in my honorable mentions could be my number 1.
I agree.
Depending on the day that I play it.
And you're a good friend, Doug. You're making me feel better, but I still feel bad for number 6 and 7 on my list.
All right. Well, we'll hear about them at the end of the list.
Good. Number 5 for me is Critter Kitchen. Episode 220. It was our game of the week. Came out this year, in the year of 2025. Designed by Alex Cutler, Peter C. Hayward. Artist is Sandera Tang. Published by Cardboard Alchemy. I just absolutely I've loved my plays of it recently, and it just came out in the last few months, but it's one that I look forward to introducing to new people. I look forward to playing this summer with my family. I hope our game group can get another play of it in, as unlikely as that is because we have other games to review. Critter Kitchen is a game that we just talked about 5 episodes ago, so I'm not going to break down a whole lot other than, there's a little bit of worker placement going out and a little bit of set collection going on. And you are building meals that are very well defined for you and getting some cool bonuses, but the scoring's also really tight. And, it's on my list. Number 5, Critter Kitchen.
All right, great choice there. My number 5 is a sentimental pick of my list. Felt like I had to put it on just because it got me into the hobby, and that was Catan. From 1995.
That'll be on my S list, Doug, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, mine too, except I modernized it. Shows up as Catan now. From Catan Studio and designer Klaus Teuber. Just a phenomenal game. We've talked about this way back in the podcast, and I'm sure people know about it. So it's a near and dear to my heart, so I had to put it on my list at number 5. And it won't be on my S's.
It will be on my S's for Settlers. I saw it. I'm really glad you're talking about it, though. It was episode 14 for folks who want to listen to it. I wonder if we were any good by episode 14. I know we were working hard, but I'm sure our sound quality was good. I know you were working really hard on that.
Sea legs
but
then.
Well, number 4 is another game of the week from way back when, one that possibly we could redo. If we weren't good at 14, maybe we were a little bit better at episode 22, and that's Clank. And, Doug and I recently played Clank Catacombs, and it reminded me just how great the base game of Clank is. Clank was released in 2016, designer Paul Dennen. The publisher now is Direwolf, and was then, but Direwolf has it here. Clank's an awesome deck builder, and you are making your way down through a dungeon, getting some treasure, and as you make your way back up, you're trying not to disturb the monster and wake them. But guess what? If Doug is the first one out, I better make sure that I get out before this beast closes up and the game ends. So just a great timer mechanism built into it. Fantastic game. One that I've been, stays in my collection. I got a big old dented box of it because it comes out every once in a while. Only about once a year, but still it's often enough where it's like, hey, you want to play Clank? And so, my 16-year-old was, I think, 12 when we first played it, maybe even 11. I don't know. I'd have to look at the log play. But anyway, great game that is just awesome. And one that another one. All of these on my list, Doug, I want to play again. That's the thing about this list. So Clank's my number 4.
All right, my number 4 is from episode 187, and that is Comic Hunters, which came out in 2020 or 2024. Arcane Wonders and Spin Master are the current publishers, and designer Robert Cole. Comic Hunters is a great game that has 3 to 4 different drafting styles, which is what I really enjoy about this game. And they fluctuate from round to round which types of drafts you're going to be doing. Some are going to be pass and take. Some are going to be selecting off of a thing. There's going to be bidding and kind of auctioning some off as you're trying to acquire a comic book collection that is catering to certain superheroes or their first appearances, different costumes, things like that to score points. The interesting thing is that you're using comics that you collect in order to pay for the ones that you want to add to your collection. So I love that idea. It's a thing that shows up in a game called Museum that I really enjoy, which is I want all of these. It's similar to this list, right? I want all of these games, but I'm going to have to spend some of them to pay for the ones that I really want. And I love how hard and angsty that decision is. So that is my number 4, Comic Hunters.
Such a good choice. Man, I missed that one. That's good. That's really good. Number 3 for me was a game of the week back in episode 79, and that's Creature Comforts, designed by Roberta Taylor, published by Kids Table Board Games, art by Shauna J.C. Tenney. I love this game, and I think very highly of this game compared to others who I've heard talk about it, but I love the dice allocation. In Creature Comforts, you're setting your dice out. Your dice almost act as workers, and you're going to take actions based on where they're set out. You're collecting resources to try to get ready for winter that's coming and build up for it. Get those creatures that you have, those cute little animals, because who doesn't like cute little animals in board games? But getting them some nice stuff. You want that scarf, you want that bowl of soup, you got to get these components to go with it. I've just really enjoyed my plays of it. It's one that, Board Game Geek listed at 45 minutes. It's actually more like 90 minutes. So as long as you're if you're not familiar with it, and if you go back and listen to episode 79, you'll see that I absolutely loved it and was excited about it. But that's just the one little caveat that I'll note. And I don't think that's just me, based on talking about this game with other folks and even in the Discord here and there and messaging some folks back and forth about why I like it so much. It's a fun game, but it is one that does run closer to an hour and a half than that 45 minutes. So just know that ahead of time. And so for kiddos, it can drag a little bit, but for me, I really enjoy it. I enjoy the solo mini expansions that come with the deluxe version. and it's a fun little game. And dice worker placement, I'm a sucker for it. So just know that as well. If you're one of our newer listeners, I really do enjoy allocating dice and being able to take actions and build combos and sets off of the choices that are made. So number 3, creature comforts.
All right. Well, speaking of dice allocation, my number 3 is Castles of Burgundy, which came out in 2011 from Ravensburger and designer Stefan Feld.
It's my number 2. Yep.
In Castles of Burgundy, you are rolling your dice, and then you are spending those dice to take tiles and actions from a central board as you basically fill up your plot of land, depending on the types of tiles and buildings that you put in there. They give you special abilities, score you more points. And it's just a phenomenal little game. I'll let Michael expound on that further as his number 2.
Yeah, I can't believe it hasn't been a game of the week yet. It's everything that you said. It's a memorable game as well, right? It's one that you can go a few years and come back to, and after that first round, jump right back into it. What I'll say about Castles of Burgundy, everything feels very connected. One of the first games. So dear listeners, I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit. Okay. When Doug and I were getting ready to do this podcast, there was about a 6-month ramp up to get ready. And part of that ramp up, as we thought of ideas and we're putting together curriculum packets, I was catching up on games I hadn't played. And Castles of Burgundy was one of those games that was in like a smattering of game nights where we were truly playing, 6, 7, 8 different games over a 1 or 2 day period.
I think I had like 3 games set up on a single table, like 2 tables next to each other, and we just worked down the table when we played
it wasn't
Castles
speed
of Burgundy.
dating. It wasn't a bingo hall, but if you've ever seen that on a movie or been to a bingo hall, that's what it looked like. And playing Castles of Burgundy was in there, and that was the moment for me where I had that, oh my goodness, how I want to keep playing games like this. And it's remained there for me. That's why it's number 2 on my list. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll play it on Board Game Arena once in a while just to stay fresh on the rules so that I'm ready in case anyone comes over and ever wants to play Castles of Burgundy. But hands down, I prefer playing with people because it's so enjoyable as the dice get rolled and put out on the table, and those what feels like a big wide open grid just closes in, sometimes catastrophically and sometimes beautifully.
All right, awesome. My number 2, Michael already mentioned, that is Clank, a deck building adventure from 2016 and Paul Denon. Similar experience to Michael. We played Clank Catacombs, and I was like, it's fine, but I enjoy the original, and I want to play the original again. And there's something to the simplicity of the original, and the idea of like I like deck building as a mechanism and as a concept, and adding that board element to it and the adventure part of it really puts it over the edge for me. And there's a lot of other deck building games that have come and gone from my collection because I wanted more. I no longer have Dominion in my collection, but it was in there for a long time. But it's like I just want that little extra, but not too much extra.
Yeah.
Like I don't need the cards to be super convoluted and have all of this extra bookkeeping, but I also want more than just straight deck building. I want to fire off I want it to be simple, but I want a cool combo to happen every once in a while. So that's what Clank, the original one, does for me, and that's why it is my number 2.
Awesome. Yeah, my number 1, Carnegie. It was released in 2022. Designer Javier Georges, sorry, and beautiful Ian O'Toole art. Folks, I'll say this is a hobby level game. It runs an hour and a half to 2 hours. Board Game Geek has the weight at a 3.81. That has just simply not been my experience. In Carnegie, the map is of the United States. Think of a beautiful Ticket to Ride. And then there's a very interesting action selection mechanism where when you choose the action that you're going to do, that then moves this gear on that track for the entire game. So the whole game is 25 turns, right? And I'm going to get to take an action, and then everyone else will get to follow. Plays beautifully at 3 people. At 2, the board is wide open, and you can have a great teaching and learning game at 2. I have played it more on Board Game Arena than in person, but still, I've got 9 log plays. It's a game that and some of those are solo, but it's a game that I really do like. I try to play it at the regional convention annually. It can take quite a bit to get it up and moving, but once each person has actually done one of the actions or sees the action, it is a game that, yes, it's a half-hour teach, but then there's very little checking in as the game gets going. And what you're doing, you have workers on your own little board, and you're sending out those workers across the United States, and you're trying to build up this perfect company, but you also have to make donations. Donations give you wonderful points. And so there's all these little things that balance. First few games I played terribly, but then kind of had figured it out where it's like, I need to do a little bit of everything. It's not the type of Euro where you could ignore anything. You have to do a little bit of everything. And so it's a game that I just really, really enjoyed. That's my number 1 game of the Seas, Carnegie.
So when you say it, the 3.81 is not your experience, are you saying that it's higher than that or lower than that?
No, much lower. Sorry, Doug. I interrupted me earlier. No, much lower. I think that if a Dune Imperium is a 3.0 and State of 3.0, to me, this is a 3.0. It's higher than a 277.5, but I don't. There are often times where I get on Board Game Geek and I'm like, that should be a 4.5. If that game's not a 5, I don't know what is. But the complexity rating, it's one that over time I thought would have dropped more. That 3.81 to 4.0, that's that Lacerda rate typically. And I'm not seeing it. There's also, and I just gave basic overview, but you get rewarded big time for connecting routes. You're trying to connect different cities together. And boy, I don't think it's that complex. And I'm one that I will typically say this, I don't know, but maybe it's just the repeated plays. Maybe it's just a game that worked for me. So that's,
I was just looking here, and it's the Board Game Geek Heavy Game of the Year winner.
Yeah. In 2022.
So I was just.
Oh, it's heavy. There's no doubt about that. But I guess what I'm saying, it's not impossible, right? There's other games that I don't think it's anywhere near as complex as Darwin's Journey, and they came out around the same time. I think Carnegie is much more approachable. You've got 4 different actions. You're sending your workers out. You're collecting your workers back. You're getting income each time the workers come back, so you can kind of see what you need to do. I think I could get this one up and running with you pretty easily. There are other games around that 3.8 that I wouldn't dare think about bringing over your house and say, hey, let's just sit down and play it. No, I haven't read the rules in a while, but let's try to go through it together. And Carnegie is one of those. So
interesting. Yeah, I was just looking to see what else got nominated with it. And John Company, which is a 4.46, and Endless Winter, which is a 3.32.
Yeah, I think it's more that Endless Winter. That's where I'd put it, yeah.
Interesting. All right, my number 1 we talked about way back in episode 20, and that is Century Spice Road, 2017 Plan B Games, designer Emerson Matsuuchi. This is one that just works for me. I love the simplicity of the teach. I love the ramping up of using your cards efficiently, trying to figure out when to rest, what cards to acquire. In Century Spice Road, you essentially have a hand of cards that give you actions, and those actions may be get spice cubes. It may be convert some spice cubes into different spices, ultimately with the end goal of to turn those spices in for objective cards, which have points on them, and some of them have extra coins on them that you can earn for more points. And there's that. Not only am I managing my own efficiency engine, I'm also able to watch and see what other people are doing, when might be the opportune time, because you play a card and it stays down in front of you until you take a rest action and you pick them all back up, and then you can start using them again. And so trying to figure out when to take that rest action, when do you need to do it? How can you convert as efficiently as possible? And the turns are among the fastest turns ever in a game that I have
my turn?
played. Yes. You will hear that 5 times throughout the entire game. Is it? Oh, it's mine. Oh, sorry. And then it, oh, my turn again. Goes so fast, but the decisions are really cool. So that's my number 1, Century Spice Road. All right, Michael, what's your go ahead.
Yeah, that was a game of the week back in episode 20.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, did you say that already?
I believe I did.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Honorable mentions.
Yeah, what were your 6 and 7 that you feel sorry about?
6 was cities. And I had cities slotted in the 4 spot. I'm like, nothing's going to come. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, Clank. Oh, Critter Kitchen. Number 7 is Cthulhu Death May Die, a cooperative that I've absolutely loved playing with my oldest kiddo, and that I've enjoyed recently. And then how are we treating the?
It's non-existent.
So my 8 should probably be in my number 1 instead of Carnegie, but my 8 is City of the Big Shoulders. Just another game that I've absolutely loved. Play at the regional convention the last 2 years, and will play and teach as long as I go to that. So those are some that are on my list, even if they're not on my list. How about you? That one is a hobby level game. That one is a 4-ish.
So I just wanted to look up the Board Game Geek. So you were fine abandoning the for the Castles of Burgundy, but not for the City of Big Shoulders.
Well, I think part of that just has to do where they sit on my shelf.
Gotcha.
Where City of Big Shoulders, I see it's the city. It's Chicago. It's the city.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the cast. My brain doesn't even see it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
All right. My honorable mentions, Crokinole is just a delight.
Gorgeous.
Coliseum is a great game.
How's that not on your list?
The cuts needed to be made. Chronicles of Crime and Castle Panic were some honorable mentions for me, and those stung to cut.
Yeah. Well, you didn't cut them. You mentioned them. They're on our list. In our hearts. Great games. Congrats.
I feel like I could I could add one more game to my honorable mentions and have that as my top 5 and be completely content and throw the other ones all in there. So it's interesting doing these lists like this. All right. Well, reminder to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on X at GameSchoolerU. Again, subscribe and like our videos on YouTube. We appreciate that. Our Discord, gameschooler.com/Discord. Join that. It's a great community. We love having you there. Next week, we are going to talk about Forever Home. And thank you so much for spending the last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now get out there and keep gaming.